Hi, I'm Patrick McConville, and this is Edible Architect. At Edible Architect, we want to make it as quick and easy as possible to build buildings out of cookies. To do so, we provide cookie cutter construction sets and cookie texture rollers to make the process as easy and fun as possible. For our initial launch edition, we featured 3 simple designs, a Cottage 1 and Cottage 2, as well as a village church. The idea was to create versatile and simple designs that you could decorate to suit any holiday or special occasion. And the village church was meant to represent something that you might see in the center of a typical New England village. Today, I will be walking you through building the village church using a sugar snap cookie recipe. And you can see that our cookie cutter construction set for this design is super simple, nice and clean, and you can really decorate it and make it what you want. The village church, of course, I think can be used for a holiday like Halloween, where you could decorate it as a spooky church with a haunted graveyard. For Christmas, where you might feature it decorated in pine garlands. But you can also use it just for a wedding or any other special occasion. One nice feature of this design is that it has really big window spaces. And what you can do with those is melt candy in order to create beautiful and tasty stained glass windows. So today, as part of our build out, I will be walking you through melting candy glass windows into your design and achieving that look. So when you're ready to start baking, come along with me and we will begin building our village church. When you're ready to start making your dough, grab your waterproof blueprints from your cookie cutter construction set. On the blueprints, you'll find your recipe, and under building materials, your ingredients. The building materials for today's build are room temperature softened unsalted butter, 2 room temperature egg whites, granulated sugar, your vanilla and almond extracts, and then your flour mixture, where I've whisked together your cake flour, salt, and baking soda. Begin by taking your softened butter and adding it to the bowl of a stand mixer or a bowl if you'll be using a hand mixer. And then add in your sugar and your vanilla and almond extracts. And you can mix those on high until the butter has incorporated all of the sugar and you don't see any more loose sugar. Once your butter has been fully creamed and incorporated into the sugar, you can take your egg whites and add those one at a time, beating well after each addition. Once you've incorporated your egg whites, you can begin adding your flour mixture. And you will want to do that in roughly 1/4 to 1/2 cup increments until it has all been combined into your dough mixture. And once you've mixed your dough together, it should look something like this. So it should be a pretty smooth dough, maybe a little bit crumbly, but one that you can work with and that will stick together when pressed between your fingers. So take your dough, turn it out onto your work surface, and then roll it into 2 balls, and then roll each ball in plastic wrap. This will keep the dough from drying out as you're working with it, or you can store the dough in the fridge for up to 48 hours in advance if you wanted to pre-make your dough and then make the cookie house another day. When you're ready to begin baking your cookies, gather everything that you'll need. First, you will need a long rolling pin, and I have fitted mine with these rolling pin bands, which will make sure that I achieve a 1/8 inch nice and thin thickness for all of my cookies. It is the easiest and fastest way to get your dough nice and thin and keep everything nice and uniform. And these are only a few dollars at a baking supply store. If you don't have them, just try your best to make sure that you can get it as thin as possible and as close to that 1/8 inch thickness. In addition to your rolling pin, you will need your waterproof blueprints from your Edible Architect cookie cutter construction set. And on the back, you will find your build plan. As you go through and cut your cookie pieces, you want to make sure that you're baking enough of each piece. For the village church design, you will need 2 each of every single piece, with the exception of the dormer roof and the cross on top of the church. So I will explain when we get to those parts, but you only need 1 each of those 2 parts. Everything else, bake 2 of. So you will need your blueprints. You will also need, of course, your cookie cutter construction set for Village Church. And you can see that at the front of the church, we have some beautiful openings that'll look great with those stained glass windows. I also have a few tools here, just a few artist's palette knives that I will use once I've pressed the cookie cutters down to lift any pieces out of any openings for windows and doors. And then I have some flour to dust any of my surfaces, my parchment paper as I'm rolling out my dough. And then finally, some granulated sugar. Once I have all of the pieces cut out and I'm ready to put them in the oven, I will sprinkle everything with that sugar before I put them in, and it'll give a nice sugary texture on the outside of each cookie. When you are ready to begin, preheat your oven to 375 degrees and line a few baking sheets with parchment paper. Then begin rolling out your dough, again trying to achieve that 1/8 inch thickness throughout, and cut out all of your pieces. I did want to correct something that I said earlier. I said that you would need 2 each of every piece except for the dormer roof and the cross on the top of the church, but I was mistaken. For the main roof, you'll see that you actually have 2 different pieces. So you want to use each piece once for the main roof. So I did misspeak. You will not need 2 each of these pieces. The reason that there are 2 unique main roofs is that we have this notch at the front of the church, and that notch will allow light to come up and through the dormer. And so you do want to make sure that you use the right roof pieces and get 1 of each. When you have cut out all of your pieces and you're ready to cut out just your cross to go on top of the church, you will want to bake this significantly thicker than all of your other pieces, about twice as thick. So you want to aim for about a 1/4 inch thickness, and that will keep the cross nice and straight when you put it up on top of the church. So I am going to use my rolling pin. I'm going to take the rolling pin bands off and roll it out nice and thick. But you do want to make sure that it is not too thick to fit on the steeple of the church. So if you find the sides of your steeple, you'll see that there's a little notch, and that notch is designed for the cross to actually sit down inside of it. So you want to make sure that when you make your cross, the cookie will be no thicker than that notch. So you can kind of use that as a gauge and just make sure that you'll make a cookie that will fit inside of the steeple at the top of the church. Okay, so we've cut a nice thick cross to put on top of our church. We have all of our pieces cut out, and so now you just want to take some sugar, sprinkle the tops of the cookies, and then place them into your 375-degree oven for about 10 to 12 minutes. Do monitor the cookies though, because you want them to just get a tiny bit golden. You do not want them to burn. So go ahead, bake your pieces, and then allow them to cool for 10 minutes, and then come back and we can begin our mortar and then our building assembly. This recipe should make plenty of leftover dough, so if you messed up any pieces and you need to rebake them, you should have plenty, or you can use it to make tons of other sugar snap cookies that you can then serve with your cookie church. Now I will begin sprinkling sugar on all of our cutout pieces and then popping those in the oven. Once you've baked all of your pieces, allow them to cool for about 10 minutes and then transfer them to a wire rack to cool completely. Once they've cooled completely, take a brush off any excess flour or sugar, and you should end up with really nice, clean-looking walls for your village church. Take all of the pieces that will contain candy glass windows, so any pieces that have those window cutouts in them, and add them to a cookie sheet that you've lined with aluminum foil. Then take whatever hard candies you'll be using for your candy glass windows and crush those up using the back of your rolling pin. I am using assorted Jolly Rancher candies because they're nice and translucent and the colors are vibrant, so that when you use them to make stained glass windows, they give you a really beautiful, colorful effect. And once those have been crushed up, you can begin to introduce them to all of the openings, and you want to fill them completely, but just keep in mind that what you're filling the window and door openings with are going to melt down, and you don't want too much spreading. So don't overfill them, but don't underfill them. Just try to gauge once they've melted that the pieces will completely fill your openings, but not ooze out from the sides. Once you have filled all of your openings with your crushed candy, you can place the tray in your oven at 350 degrees for about 5 minutes. Keep monitoring it continuously though, because you really just want everything to melt and then just begin to bubble when you take it out. Do not walk away because it can change very quickly and then you end up with a big bubbly mess. So pop these in for 5 minutes, keep an eye on them, and then once your candies have melted, take them out and let them cool completely on the aluminum foil. While you wait for your pieces to cool completely, you can make your mortar or royal icing. For this, you will need your room temperature egg whites, your lemon juice, I'm going to use 1 tablespoon, and then your confectioner sugar whisked together with your cream of tartar. You can go ahead, take your room temperature egg whites, add those to the bowl of your stand mixer or to a regular bowl if you'll be using a hand mixer. And then you can whisk those on high for 2 to 3 minutes until they're nice and foamy. And then once your egg whites are nice and foamy, take your lemon juice and add 1 tablespoon. And then whisk that a bit just until it's incorporated into the foamy egg whites. At this point, we'll begin to introduce our powdered sugar mixture to our foamy egg whites. And you will want to do that in approximately 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup increments until it's all been incorporated into that mixture. And once you've mixed in all of your powdered sugar mixture, switch your mixer to high and then mix on high for approximately 5 to 7 minutes until you have a consistency that will hold your house together, but isn't so thick that you won't be able to push it through a piping bag or a Ziploc bag if you'll be cutting the corner out of one of those to apply your icing. So 5 to 7 minutes on high, and then we will transfer it to our piping bag. Okay, and it looks like we have achieved our desired consistency for the royal icing, because you want it not to be runny, but you want it not to be too thick so that you won't be able to pipe it onto your cookies in order to put the building together. So now that we have our icing, we will transfer it to our piping bag or to a Ziploc bag if you'd like to cut a corner out of one of those. And we now have our mortar, so we can set that aside, we can tidy up, and then we will be ready to begin our assembly on the village church. To begin your assembly, grab whatever platform, whether it be a plate, a stand like this, which I got at a home goods store for approximately $10, whatever you'll be building your cookie house on, grab that. And then take the front wall of your church from your cookie cutter construction set, as well as one of the side walls, and then putting those perpendicular to one another on your platform, go ahead and determine where exactly you want those two first walls to sit on your platform. And then trace each one exactly with a pencil. And we'll use those lines as a guide when we put our first two walls in place to make sure that we get a nice square result and a nice clean looking structure. Once you have your platform, you can also take your waterproof blueprints and begin reviewing your build plan. That is going to walk you through step by step how you will build Village Church. I will be doing it here today, so you can follow along with me. And then, of course, we have our mortar, which we just made, which we are going to use in order to construct the church. I have brushed off all of the pieces, and then I did do the optional step of incorporating candy glass windows into the walls of the village church. And as you can see, it only took a few minutes, and I think it's a really worthwhile and fun thing to do because the light that we will shine from the inside out will really make those colors pop, and they will look like stained glass windows. So take all of your pieces. I also like to cut around the aluminum foil and leave it attached to the bottom side of each piece as I'm building, and then just peel it off as I'm putting the piece in place. I find that that keeps the windows looking clear and they don't get cloudy, so that you have a nice, clean, beautiful looking village church with stained glass candy windows. To begin our construction, take your mortar and then determine which of your front or back walls you want to be the front. So start with the piece that you think looks the best. And in this case, I think I'll use this piece as my front. And then you can very carefully peel the aluminum foil off of the back. And if you did find that the candy bled out along any of the edges, you can just carefully chip that off once it's cool, and it should come off nice and cleanly. And if you don't have a perfect edge, don't worry, because with royal icing, you will be able to still attach the roof and then you won't even see it. So take that front wall of Village Church with our Jolly Rancher windows and add a line of icing along the bottom edge. And then take that and press it down into the shorter line of icing that you just drew on your platform. And you've placed the first wall of your village church. Take a support of some kind, so a jar or a box of baking soda, and then you can just lean that first wall against that support while you grab your next piece. Next, we'll want to take one of the side walls of the church, so it doesn't matter which one. We'll take this one, and it should look something like this. And then carefully peel off the aluminum foil. And then we want to hold that piece in place just to see where it will go and to determine which edges we will need icing on. So we will want to take our mortar or royal icing and apply it to that front edge here and to this bottom edge here. So that is going to be this edge and this edge. Then take that piece and then lean your front wall forward, move your support if necessary. And then you want to put the bottom edge down along that line that you drew earlier and press that into place. And then carefully press that front wall into that line of icing and press everything together so that you get nice, clean, squared edges. And it should look something like that. So we have our first two walls of Village Church completed. We will remove our support. And now we want to take the other side wall, peel off the aluminum foil, and then again determine which edges will require royal icing. So this edge here and this bottom edge. And then take your piece. Oh, I did the wrong edge. It should be the other edge. Now, if you make that mistake, it's fine, but we will have to work quickly. So take that side wall and press it down into place against that front wall, making a nice squared corner. And then just squeeze everything together to ensure a nice seam. And then we will want to add a line of icing to either edge of the back of the church, here on the front, or here on the back rather. So we already applied icing there. We will apply our icing here. And then we will take the back wall, peel off the foil, and then apply a line of icing along this bottom edge. And then press that piece into place and join those corners, making nice, clean, squared corners with neat, clean edges. And you can still adjust it for a moment if you want to play with it a bit. And there we have the base structure for our church. Now we will begin to apply the roof. So again, you want to take a look and decide which is the front of the church. So in this case, this is my front. And I want to take my first roof piece and look for the one where the notch is on the left side of the piece. So if you're looking at the piece from the top, it would be on the left side. And then just hold that in place and you'll see that the notch will be on the front end of the church. So take your mortar and apply a line of icing along this top edge of the front, the top edge of the side, and then the top edge of the back. Take that roof piece, and with the notch toward the front, press it down into place. And you just want to make sure that the roof does not protrude beyond the peak on the front or back side. Okay, so press that into place. And once it's secure, we will apply the roof on the other side. So take that other roof piece. You can hold that in place just to make sure that you know where it will go. And then add a line of icing to those top 3 edges on the other side, and then along that peak roof line on the roof piece that you just placed. Do not put any frosting or icing in the notch because you want as much light to shine up through there as possible. So along those top 3 edges of the side. And then along that center roof line's edge. Avoiding the notch and making sure that you have a good bead along. Now take that roof piece and press that into place, overlapping the other roof, and then just pinch your seams together so that you get a nice clean fit. And the openings on either side should join so that you get a nice notch through which light can shine up into the dormer and the steeple. Next, we will move on to assembling our dormer. And to assemble the dormer, begin with the front of the dormer. So that should be one of these pieces, and that is going to sit on the front of the church. So that is going to be a really visible piece. So if there's one that looks better than the other, pick that one. And then take that piece and add a line of icing along either side of that inside face of the piece. And then take one of the sides of your dormer with the candy glass window, peel off the aluminum foil, and again, if you have any candy, just carefully try to chip that off as best you can. And then take that side with the window and press it into that line of icing and press both down against your work surface. And then take the other side with the window and do the same thing. So press that down into that line of icing. Now take the back of your dormer, add a line of icing to either side of that inside face. And then press those 2 side walls of the dormer into those 2 lines of icing, making a nice squared structure. And then allow that to set up for just a few moments. And we will now assemble our steeple. So to assemble the steeple, take the front of the steeple, so whichever of these pieces looks better, and apply a line of icing to either side of the inside face. and then take one of the sides of the steeple, so that should have that notch cut out into which the cross will sit, and then pressing both down against your work surface, press the edge of the side of your steeple into one of those lines of icing. Take the other side of the steeple with the notch cut out, press that into that other line of icing on the other side, and then take the back of your steeple, so the piece that looks like this, and then add a line of icing to either side of the inside face. And then press that into place against the two sides of your steeple. And again, you should aim to squeeze your corners and pinch so that you get a nice squared structure, and your cross will sit securely in those two notches. So we will give those just a moment to dry, and then we will come back, we will apply them to the church, and then apply the finishing touches. Within a few minutes, everything should have dried sufficiently that it's set up. So once you feel that everything is stable enough that you'll be able to handle it, we can begin applying the structures to our roof. So you want to take your dormer, make sure that it feels pretty stable, not wobbly and still drying, and then take your mortar, and you want to carefully invert your dormer. Mine is still wobbly, so I'm going to be extra careful. But you want to apply a line of icing along the entire bottom on all those edges, and then press that carefully down into place over the notch on your church. And you can move it and adjust it if you need to. And then once you're happy with its position, you can add a line of icing along the top 4 edges of the dormer. And then take your dormer roof and press that down into place over the dormer. And then once you're happy with where that is, we will apply the steeple. So again, just make sure it's stable enough to handle, and then flip it upside down and apply icing to the bottom 4 edges. And then you want to press that down into place at the center of your dormer. So press everything down, make sure everything's nice and secure. And then we'll give that a moment to set up before we install the cross. So the cross is meant to sit in that notch between the sides of the steeple. So just make sure that it will fit. You can do a dry fit. And then once this has set up, we will add some icing to the notches and potentially to the cross, and then we can seat that down into place. Once that's set for a bit, we can install the final piece, which is our cross at the top of our village church. So take your mortar or royal icing and then add some to either notch from the inside. And then you can take your cross, seat that down carefully into your steeple. It should sit in place. And you may want to do some adjusting and maybe use some icing to anchor it just a bit. But it really finishes our church and achieves the look that I was going for when I had designed this, which is really for a New England church, which you might see in the center of any village. And now, because we installed a light kit under the base and then drilled a hole through our base, snaked the lights up, and then built our house around the lights, we can turn them on and light the church from within. That makes a big impact with the candy glass stained glass windows because the light really can show all of the color beautifully. And you'll see it gives a really nice effect. So just a few minutes in the oven with some crushed up Jolly Ranchers and you can achieve this. And in the dark, you'll see because we have the notch at the top, the light shines right through our dormer and you get a fully illuminated structure. So a really, really beautiful village church. And again, the recipe that we baked this one using was our sugar snap cookie recipe, which you can find on ediblearchitect.com/recipes. Once you have finished building your village church, you can wash your Edible Architect Village Church cookie cutter construction set. Let it dry completely. You do not want to put this in the dishwasher, but just wash it with soap and water in the sink, and then return that to the box that it came in. As well, you can wash off, rinse off, and dry off your waterproof blueprints, roll those back up, and then put those back in the box as well. This particular design, I think, might work great for Easter, for a christening, for a baptism, for a communion, potentially for a wedding, or maybe even, could you imagine rolling up to the church bake sale with one of these? I mean, Lord have mercy. If you do have any feedback, please drop something in the comments. Please like and subscribe. We will be building plenty of new cookie houses using new recipes and fresh designs every month. Thanks so much for joining. I hope you had a great time. And if you do want to get an Edible Architect cookie cutter construction set, such as the one we used to build the village church, you can find those on our website, ediblearchitect.com, in our shop.